Hello and welcome to Deep Dives with New Perspectives. I'm Michael Bartlett.
And I'm Mary Lynn LeBlanc.
And
And how are you today, Michael?
I'm doing well, kind of sitting with, I don't know, like it's been kind of an intense week. There's just seems like it's like the never-ending onslaught. How about you?
I, I'm beginning to get to that point where what day of the week is it? Where am I? What, what time is it? There's something about isolation that really changes your sense of your surroundings and reality, and it alters time, it alters place, but time especially. It's very interesting for us astrologers, isn't it?
Yeah, the time is like it's very, here we are, it's December now, right? This pandemic has been going on for like a good almost solid 9 months. And our lives are pretty shifted at this point for many of us.
Right. I haven't wasn't thinking about the notion of time and astrology because but it's making me stop and think because what we do is so much associated with time. Oh, we have a we're having a balsamic moon right now, and soon it'll be a new moon that'll eclipse the sun, and these things happen in an orderly, some not necessarily in an orderly fashion as most earthlings think of it, but in astrology terms, a very orderly fashion. And yet, it's all, as in metaphysics, we might say it's all an illusion. And what's interesting to me, I don't know about, I know, Michael, that you have this other practice that you do that's called Core Michael. And for as a healing practitioner, and I'd love to hear about that sometime, maybe today. But one of the practices that I do has to do with neurolinguistic programming, and it's called the family constellation. And I had a session this past week with somebody who does a very nice job on the phone. You don't have some of the family constellations are done in groups of people, but this is not. But it hit me at this very moment that we are living our past all the time. We bring it with us, and and at the same time we're living the present and we're living the future, depending on how much we live. I mean, many humans do live in the future. Oh well, this Christmas is going to be the most unusual, and they keep thinking about Christmas instead of what's today, what's going on today. But it kind of that I'm just kind of struck at the moment with this kind of, yes, we are in an illusion because it's all happening simultaneously. Our minds are strange.
Well, it's so interesting because the truth is that it's the eternal now, right? And I think it's really, I don't know, now that I'm kind of getting the age, I remember when the movie Groundhog Day came out, and I was like, oh my God, that's so interesting. He taught himself French, he ended up like falling in love with her and found the ways that would mean something special to her and wooed her without her knowing, because he was the only one conscious, coming back, waking up with the same day every day. But the truth is, that's life. I'm 55 now, and I actually kind of like look at life as being one continuous Groundhog Day. I mean, we have these opportunities in any moment to say, hey, you know what, this is what I want to put my focus on. And I think we stay typically, from what my work is we stay caught up in the wounds of the past, with the child in us coming up with all these strategies to win. Right? So that's continually getting played out in the moment now, with the idea that at some future point it will be okay. And it's not really a winning situation.
Yeah, so it's okay right now. Everything's okay.
That's what all of our Pisces friends are here to tell us, is to let us know that whatever it is right now, it is okay. I mean, I love my Pisces friends for that, because the truth is, whatever is present is what is going on. It's our minds that want to sit there and go like, oh my gosh. I mean, many of us are those of us who are in relationship or living with people, during the pandemic, we're spending a lot more time with maybe a lot less ability to get our social needs met by the regular spectrum of people, right? And so those individuals in our lives are kind of on the receiving end of a lot. And but whoever's in our household with us, because we're cooped up, and there's the unknown anxiety. I mean, this is a really bizarre time, and we're trying to normalize it. We're trying to make it okay. We're trying to say, hey, da 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 da. We're actually, it's a little sidestep for a second. I'm just going to give a little sidebar saying, at the end of this month on the 26th, Marilyn and myself are going to be joining Aaron Sullivan and Daniel Fiverson for a talk on 2021, and how to make it through. You can get your tickets at thegatesofhell.bpt for brownpapertickets.me. We're calling it the Gates of Hell because we really want people to understand that these are really, things are getting ripped open, things are being opened up. This is an incredible birthing time. I mean, literally, it's almost like the ground upon which we're all walking is being ripped open by Pluto at any moment, and we're being presented with a very different reality than that which we thought was going on. And this continual awakening to the reality is what astrology, I think, can help bring us to in a way that doesn't become victimized and doesn't become sensationalized as well.
I want to say that HTTPS, anyway, that address is not really exact, because it's brownpapertickets.com
Right.
spelled out.
That's their short link if you don't want to type out the whole way. But if you go to Brown Paper Tickets, you put a Google search for Brown Paper Tickets, put in upcoming talks, and put in 2021. The gates of hell are open.
And you'll get it. Exactly. Yeah.
Controversial title. I mean, we were very kind of, Daniel came up with the idea, and we kind of were a little awkward because of that, there's a lot of charge around the word hell. But the
Well,
truth is,
one person or you two, I have no problems with hell. Hell in my mind is here. It's the planet Earth. We create hell. Uh,
thank you.
that's interesting, because actually had uh, a conversation with somebody not too long ago about people with near death experiences. And, for the most part, the ones that I have read about and that you frequently hear about are people having these wonderful, uh, they're just wonderful occurrences where everything is so crisp and fresh, and there's these people that you've loved in your life that you meet. And I said, everybody seems to be having really positive experiences. So is there really a hell? Is it just the mythology of Pluto and how we see it played out here, and Hades being played out here on this planet? And I'd go yes to that. But then this one friend who actually in graduate school did a paper on near death experiences, and found that people who commit suicide and are brought back, their suicide is a near death experience. It doesn't get completed. Their recollections are not pleasant at all. That is what I've heard. I mean, I don't, I'm not, I don't plan on committing suicide. I don't plan on having that kind of experience at all. But it was very interesting, but made me sad, because I do know people personally who have taken their own lives, and and it saddens me. But it even saddens me more to know that suicide is not um, the way to end a horrible experience here on the earth.
It's very interesting. I don't know, did you ever see the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams? came out a while
Oh,
ago.
I remember. I don't remember it, but yes.
There's one part in it, and it really specifically deals with the with someone who had suicided and went to like a type of hell. And it was very interesting because what was explained, and it really actually made sense to me. In fact, I get goosebumps even just thinking about it right now, is that it's not that it is a sin or that it's bad. It's that how the individual holds that that part of themselves and therefore punishes themselves when they're on the other side. Right? Because I mean, and the other
Right.
thing is like what I've heard, Seth talked about it a lot, if you, and I know you've read a lot of Seth materials, a lot of other people.
Years ago,
Yeah.
decades ago.
Right. But one of the things it talks about is, you're kind of like your deathscape, when you go and you die, this kind of scene that you see, we kind of prepare for it in a certain sense, but it's like, it's meant to kind of calm us and to keep us, kind of not jolt us as much. Because the truth is, it's just like, I mean, you and I are Scorpio moons, right? Life is always rebirthing, but it's just another rebirth. It's another loss of innocence, right? We don't know. We have inklings about what that is on the other side, but there is an innocence on it. Just like when we come into our body as a baby, when our souls incarnate into the physical being, it's another kind of a new kind of a rude awakening, right? There's a new innocence being born. And I think there's this interesting cycle that gets played out in that. But I think it really has to do with what we hold. And I'll never forget the one part um, in Seth, Jane Roberts said, like for an example, that Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, that he will remain in a very dark place until his consciousness is ready to understand that there is something other than the néant, the nothingness. And I thought that was very interesting, because we do, and I think we do that on that side, and I think we also do that on this side. And what you said earlier about, the hell is on earth, it's like, I think that is true. I think we either create heaven or hell on earth based on what our attitudes are, what we're bringing forth from the past, and the ways in which we continually deny choosing to do something different in the moment.
Yes. Unfortunately, some people don't do what many people who have near-death experiences say they go through, is this self realization and self judgment. It's like the judgment is put on oneself by oneself, about one's life, and most of the time they're harsher than other people would be, and yet we don't do that. Some people do, but not very many people do that in this life, or we wouldn't have the mess that we have on this planet. If everybody, took a point of time. I think in Catholicism, that's what was intended by the sacrament of penance, that you take a period of time and reflect on what you've done, and in reflection, those things that were really not positive, not good for you, not good for others, not good for the earth. These are these are the principles I live by. That those are the things that you need to ask forgiveness for. And in some cases, to use the Catholic term, I don't know if they call it penance anymore. I think some people have told me they've changed the name, but that's where you would make, there's a
Amends.
synonym that I'm looking
Make
for.
amends.
Make amends, yes, like the 12-step program talks
Right,
about.
right,
Yes, yes, definitely.
right. And I think,
But you don't see that universally done. Maybe it is. I mean, obviously, people shouldn't be wearing. I'm not expecting people to be wearing signboards saying "I made amends."
like wearing the scarlet letter, right? But I mean, and the thing,
It's
this,
results. It's the results we see. Anyway,
and,
go ahead.
and
I'm sorry.
in getting that back to the Pluto sense, it's like, Pluto is going to take that from us. And, the best thing that we can do is say, like, wow, yeah, you know what? Because Pluto makes us humble, right? We have to surrender to this larger process. There's something that our ego needs kind of like a comeuppance or like a wake up call in a sense, like I like to think of Pluto as taking away one set of luxuries that you really don't need, but giving you the rewards of the deeper earned luxuries. Pluto rules like, gemstones and oil, and, the things that are underneath the earth. But I mean, the truth is the true gold, that alchemical gold that we have within ourselves when we go like, hey, you know what? I have been an asshole. I have acted in an inappropriate way, and I want to make amends, and I want to do the right thing.
So, given the title of our events, the gates of hell are open, meaning that what is going on in our lives right now is full of opportunities to make amends.
And it's funny, I sit here and I have to admit, I try to work with my life in a very conscious manner, but I have a few people in my life who I'm not speaking to anymore because it's not healthy for me to, and it gives me great pain. And I don't know, it's a great torment to understand how to be in relationship with people, especially, a lot of us with family members or friends who, have different either belief structures or other things that are challenging for us. But we want to love them because, they're human beings and we love them. But in the personality level, it's hard. And I know on a personal level, I personally am not an easy person. So we all have our foibles. How do we find the way to do that? How do we hold each other in love and understand that maybe sometimes it's not the best time to be
I
in
just think we
relationship.
do that in our hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, how the other person perceives being loved is their business. It's not my business.
Right.
But if there are people, and I know what you mean, there are people in your life that no longer communicate with for various reasons, and yet you can love them in your heart and wish them well in your heart, because the truth is it depends on the lifestyle you've lived, but you know many of us have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people flow through our lives, not everybody, but some people, a lot of people, I would say. And there's not enough time in the day to do what you're here to do and to be communicating with them. And 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 so it's how you regard them in your heart, I think, that matters.
I thought that's why God created Facebook, was to keep in contact with all of them.
That for me, that's short lived. It's sort of like, okay, now I know what they look like after all these years. Okay, now I know that they have umpteen grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. But after that.
Well, I often think of it as being like the circles, the ever concentric circles outside from ourselves. And what I like about social media is it's that way of keeping in contact with those who are close, as well as all those who are all in all those concentric rings all the way out, indiscriminately and evenly across all of it. And then, there are the people who you share those more intimate things with.
Right. Well, I know that the people in my life who whom I love and who truly love me understand me well enough to know that 3, 4 years could go by that we have not seen or heard from each other. And yet, all of a sudden, for some reason, we make this connection, and it's as if we haven't lost a year between us, or a month even.
Uh,
And that's just who I am. I've always been that way. I mean, to me, it's like, if I have to, and there have been a few people where I've had to say that to. I've said, look, I have a life, but it doesn't mean that you don't matter.
I think it's very Aquarian, to be honest,
Yeah.
and actually almost like Aquarian female. Like I either find it with women or my friends who have Aquarian moons. It's like sometimes I can feel a little bit like dismissed or something, but the truth is whenever that connection is back in groove or like connected, it's like there's no time and no space. but there can be vast periods in between where there's like not any kind of a connection. And I don't know if this happens to you, but I'll even have like people who, like, I had to like kind of break
Any
off this.
physical, you mean any physical connection?
Yeah, or
Phys-
even just like even just like talking on the phone or being like any kind of communication, like what you say is like don't hear from them for 4 or 5 years, and then you do, and then it's really, like, oh my God, I forgot, it's almost like, yeah, it's like best friends reconnecting, but then as soon as you leave each other's company, it's back to what it was for like the last 3 4 years. It's quiet again, and it's kind of, I wonder what those kind of interesting intersections are.
Well, I think they're special. I think they're connections. I've had opportunities in my life where I've gone to conferences and met somebody. We end up, sitting at the same place and sitting in whatever. And there's an exchange that happened, and we're both cognizant of it. And we both know that we may never see each other again, which has been the case. But that exchange was very important. It's sometimes only an energetic thing. I had that happen to me in the hospital not too long ago, where a person sharing the same room with me actually is twice now that I think about it. I may never see that person again, but the exchange and it was an energetic exchange was extremely important in my life. And there have been people from my childhood, I'm thinking back over the years, where a couple times where I'd get this phone call, and it was because one of them ran into my mother and she wanted to know what I was doing, and the other one was one of them, knows my sister-in-law and wanted to, but the conversation was so important at the time that those exchanges stay in my mind and very, very strongly. So there's an energetic that goes on, and I think it's an awareness that we're more than just these physical beings living a life here that ends here. You know.
And I think sometimes those meetings end up being, it's like the first thing I think of is I wonder what transits are going on for either person in that regard. But I think, there's like a seed being planted, so to speak, right? Like a reissuing. Like the interesting thing, I think what I was kind of against with Facebook in the beginning, but now I've kind of gotten calm about was I don't know, like for me, like the older I get, the more understanding I've become about being socialized and being in relationship with people. And so like I don't look back at my junior high and high school days is with like a lot of fondness in a sense. So like my sense, like if I'm in contact with you, I'm still, I'd be in contact with you. Like I don't want to go back to a class reunion sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So but I've had people kind of connect with me with Facebook, but it ends up being that when we do, it ends up being like some sort of an interesting acceleration for either one or both of us, because it's like we're looking for something that we're not quite getting somewhere else, but through that interaction, it reflects something that, kind of like what you're saying is it's what's needed in the moment.
But it's so Aquarian. You're doing it. You're doing it in the technology world.
Right, right.
You're, you're,
We're doing it
we
here.
I mean, we're a generation apart,
Right,
I
right.
mean, you could have been my late teenage son. I would have been a teenager, but you could have been. And so,
You could have been my
and
baby mama or mama. I don't know how they say it nowadays.
never mind. I'm glad that wasn't the case, but I'm
Yeah.
glad that I had you in my life as a friend.
That's why we're able to be friends.
Well, no, I'm thinking generationally, because each generation, each this is like a nodal generation, and the Saros series of the nodes return every 18 years. I'm not talking about the node returning to where it is in your birth chart. That's 19 and a half years. But every 18 years that you have another eclipse in a particular series that is repetitive from either the North Pole to the South Pole or the South Pole to the North Pole. And and it's sort of like those are connections to people too. I mean, the nodes are not only about our own personal soul evolution, but they're also about how we do that through our interactions with others.
I see it as our
And
connection with the collective, to be
yeah,
honest. Like whenever I see those nodes, I always think it's like that's how one relates to one's past collective and one relates to one's future collective, how one's kind of fitting in that kind of way, right?
right. And so this whole thing about connecting with people, having this exchange, and I'm thinking, yes, the generation after me is having those exchanges electronically.
Well, we're
Where
also having our nodal return right now. My generation, is having. I'm a Sag South node, Gemini North node, and that's where the nodes are right now. So I mean, yeah, of course, and that's the other thing that's funny, right? We always think like, oh, it's a serendipity, and then we look at the charts like, well, of course, people are coming out from my past and seeking bits of information and truth, right? It's Gemini Sagittarius. What's the new story? What's the new adventure? Who am I now?
where are you going? What are you doing?
I don't know.
Do you
No one
turn this
knows right
into
now
a
where we're
turn
going.
this into a therapy session?
I know, right? We've really kind of traversed kind of like the very interesting things. I'm excited. So we're going to be doing a little kind of mini talk on your show next Saturday, right? On Moonwise.
It won't be, it'll air the 19th of December, the Saturday after this coming when we're recording it next
Right,
Saturday.
right. And
Doing
it'll be a
doing
little
things in advance
tease.
these days.
Sorry.
Doing things in advance these days.
Yeah, it
Yes.
really helps. But it's going to be a little tease on what we're going to talk about on the 26th.
Right. So it'll be available as a podcast at ksfr.org. Under the on the homepage, there's a program tab. Hit that, and you'll scroll down to podcasts, and then scroll down to Moonwise alphabetically, and it will be up later in the day on the 19th. Well, actually, probably at 11 o'clock on the 19th, if everything goes as scheduled.
Perfect. And your website, what's going on with your website?
Oh, moonwiseastrology.com. I'm in this glitch of they have the templates that I'm using are from this company that has this way of connecting you on to Google and then other search engines. And I have spent days trying. They have all these videos that show you how to do it, but they don't upgrade them to fit the version and the edition. And I'm going, okay, maybe I'll do this. I have done it umpteen ways. So if you go online and Google or search for Moonwise Astrology, all one word, you won't find it. They'll say, you mean Moonwise Astrology? Because there's a lot of people who have written some books or articles or whatever, and you'll see all of those. But if you just go moonwiseastrology.com, search for that, it should take you to the site. But that's because that's the address. That's the URL. moonwiseastrology.com, all one word. And yeah, and so on that, I show what kinds of consultations I do because I'm into process orientation, and I've been one of these astrologers that is can be very eclectic. In the early years, I read every book I could get my hands on, and some. I have an astrology library that's bigger than any library you find in a bookstore. Of course, there aren't bookstores books. Well, there are a few astrology books in the bookstores that are open these days, but very few.
I have to
And
admit, my friend, the cabinet maker, has been building a lot of bookcases for people this year. So, I mean, I have to say that at
really,
least, I mean, that's very heartening to me that there are people still reading.
yeah, well, I mean, so many people getting ebooks. Like your book is you have as an
Both
ebook, or
hard
the
copies.
Maverick
Yeah.
in astrology book
Mhm.
you have as an ebook or whatever. I I have gotten a few ebooks, but I like to mark up the book. I paid for them. I can do what I want with them. So, if you look at the books on my bookshelves, you'll find little pieces of paper sticking out. You'll find if you flip through the pages, you'll see scribblings here and there and stuff. Matter of fact, it's so funny. There's this, it's a loose leaf, mimeographed, well, or copied, whatever these days. I'm dating myself. pamphlet that I had made a copy of and gave to an astrology friend. And the one that I have is so bad. I thought it might be here, but it isn't. I could flip it and show it. It's dog-eared and crumbling apart and tiny tears. And so I asked her if she could make me a copy and send me the copy. When she sent me the copy, I just got it the other day. And I said, "That looks like my handwriting." So I had already been scribbling before I made copies of it for her. I had already been scribbling here and there. And that's my right. It's my book. I mean, if I really like the book, it's important to me. And
Definitely.
I want to leave little memories of why it was important to me at that particular.
I think that's a great idea.
I love books. I love reading. I love them so much that I sleep with them. I wake
That is
up in
one
the
good
morning.
thing about the Kindle and the iBooks is that, when it falls forward on your chest, it doesn't like hurt as much as a big book does.
Exactly.
Uh, well, if you guys like what you're seeing here, if you're enjoying our show, please click like, please share with your friends, please feel free to leave comments like some of you have. Really appreciate that. Ask questions, if there's a topic coming up. I think next week, let's see, we're the 10th. So I think maybe next week we might talk about the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, or we do that in 2 weeks. I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, well, but that's what I'm also, well, there's so many different ways to talk about it. So we could do that. That's what I'm talking about on our Zoom session on December 26th. The gates of hell are open at 12 noon Mountain Time.
Yep.
So mark your calendar, 12 noon Mountain Time. Go to
Ticket.
brownpapertickets.com and check out the gates of hell are open. And it's what, $15, and you will be getting a Zoom link that you can actually look at other times, as I understand. That same
Maybe
link would bring you
recording.
back
Yep.
to it. Yeah. And so what a deal.
Yeah.
Four astrologers, four different topics. Aaron Sullivan's talking about the ladies from Hades.
Love
Um,
that.
You'll hear a little bit about that on Moonwise show on the 19th. Just a little preview about who are these ladies.
Daniel Fiverson's going to be talking on Eris, which he understands so deeply and well, and the reasons why we're going through a lot of the issues right now on the planet, and kind of just helping us to bring awareness, and not a point to overwhelm and scare people, but just to inform and in charge. My talk is going to be on surviving and thriving. Finding ways to thrive in these challenging times, and how to keep your sanity. So, thank you all for tuning in this week. Really appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Bye for now.
Yeah.